If you guys don't know the most dangerous man in the world, Ken Shamrock, you should.
Yeah.
Ken, good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And day before Thanksgiving for us. And,
Yeah.
and we're thankful that you're here.
Yeah, absolutely thankful.
Well, we got a lot to look forward to. Not only just the interview, but boy, we got Thanksgiving coming up.
I know.
Oh,
Come on.
So what do you got planned? You got like 5 turkeys for the whole family and everything, or what?
Well, I've got 7 kids, 16 grandbabies, so our family's pretty big, but usually Christmas is bigger. And we usually pick because all my kids are spread out from California, Nevada, Arizona. Close enough for everybody to drive, but just a strain during holidays to kind of bring everybody together. So we usually just pick and choose. So Thanksgiving is we're just going to go to a restaurant down here because we're in Reno, and me and a couple of my other family members are going to go to one of these steakhouses, the Atlantis to be exact, to get some food, a buffet. It's going to be good.
That's a good one.
I'll be in Reno too, so that's awesome.
Hey, I'm telling you, man, isn't it better than all the cleanup? Even though I enjoyed family and all that stuff around, but you get to a point to where you get my age and all that, you want it simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Hey,
couldn't
we
agree more.
met Ken out at a golf tournament.
Oh my God.
In El Dorado Hills, and we just had so much fun with Ken.
Oh,
he
yeah.
was having a ball all day. He was hitting the ball all over the golf course. But we held down hole number 9, and Ken came by, and just the energy was amazing.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
that's why we wanted to interview. We just had such a great time with Ken. And when we interview people, athletes all over the world, Jeff Garcia was there, and that's why we met Jeff and interviewed him, and Steve Berline and so. But we really like to get into a world-class athlete like yourself, some of the mindsets and the dedications and stuff like that it puts to do that. You've had a career starting all the way from the beginning, the UFC, and you also wrestling,
WWE, TNA, I mean,
ECW, I think it was too,
Yeah.
as well. So a storied career. In all of that, what would you say is one of the things that's kept you going the longest in all the career between fighting and wrestling and all that stuff? What is something you could share that says this is what it takes to continue to strive for success?
Well, first of all, I think it's a mindset, definitely. And I think it comes from, upbringing. Sometimes the upbringing isn't there, like myself, where I was in and out of juvenile hall, wasn't much there, was told I was going to be dead or in prison before I was 18, just a lot of things, no support. So you got 2 kinds of people. You got the ones that are going to say, you know what, I'll show you. And then you got the ones that just believe it, and they become nothing because people keep telling them that. So I say to people who come from that struggling background, which a lot of athletes do, even actors, they come from a background of maybe not abusing parents, but parents that were poor, couldn't buy them a whole lot. Just a real grim start. And those guys that usually make it are the ones that have the strongest mindsets because they don't believe what people are telling them. They want to prove everybody wrong. That's why you hear the term in NFL or baseball, fighting, anything, any sport you go into, they always say it's us against the world, because that's the mentality that most of them grew up with, was it's their family or themselves against the world, and they succeeded. And so I think that's where a lot of that comes from. There's also the flip side of the coin. There's those people that have been truly blessed and had great families, they had money, but were taught that they needed to make themselves better. They need to keep striving to be better and not relying on what they already have, is to always improve themselves and just drill it into them. Those are parents that are really, really good parents, especially when they come from a great background and you see a kid that succeeds at that level. You turn around and you look at those parents and you'll know why.
And then on the other thing that I'm thinking about is that, you've been a fighter your whole life, but you probably know more about teamwork than most people, because just being a fighter out there in the cage, it's not just you. I mean, you are just on the cage fighting, but there's a huge team about that. And how vital was teamwork to your career?
Well, it was so vital, I created it. A lot of people would go into this and, with the mindset that they would just bring guys in to train with them. They go to different places and train, and then they would go and fight, and then they go and they would do it again with some other team, and they wouldn't be able to sustain the success that they had because they didn't have that team around them that was constantly helping grow throughout the year. They would just bring different people in, and no core team. And so when I started the Lions Den, that was the first team in mixed martial arts, because I truly believe that from what I experienced in the Marine Corps and what I experienced in Japan was that there was a support team. No matter what you did by yourself, if you were out on some sort of special ops and you were doing it yourself, or even in Japan with the fighting there, they were always supporting one another. They had a core team. And it just felt like that's the way this should be done, because just because you walk in there by yourself, there's a whole lot of planning that goes on before you get inside there. And then once you're inside there, you have a team that's on the outside in the corner that's literally talking to you in between rounds, because you can't see everything during a fight. So I just felt like, wow, I think this might be a better situation to create a team, a Lions Den team, to help me further my career. And then as I started getting more into it, I realized there was other people that wanted to do this also. And so I was able to help them create an opportunity to fulfill their dreams. So it really worked hand in hand, but I was the first one to really look at this and go, you know what, this is a team sport, not an individual sport.
That's amazing, because you see the benefits of having the team atmosphere around the fighter or the wrestler or whom is in that squared circle. And I sit there and I'm like, wow, that is absolutely amazing. I never realized that you were the person that actually invented it. You over the years of watching UFC since UFC 1 and Royce Gracie 1 and so on and so forth, I saw the transitions, the build, and I remember the first moment that I actually realized that it was truly a team sport, even though it was an individual sport. Spit it out, Chris. There we go. Was the first time I saw you fight Rich Franklin.
Right.
And I went, this is truly a team sport. And I always wanted, like he was saying, the mindset. And I'd always wondered, and I found out years later watching, was, God, I'm getting to a question. I'm just going about it the wrong way.
You're good.
I'm
You're good.
I'm really excited about this. Actually. With watching, you have your jiu-jitsu, you have your boxer, you have your wrestler. And the way that you had to intertwine that, for you intertwining it, did you feel that you had to work on your deficits more during training, or was it that you were learning how to make the uncomfortable comfortable?
Well, I think it depends on each individual that I fought. And I always studied tape. I always tried to figure out who they were. Even in the early days when you really didn't know anybody, you just try to pull up whatever you could, any information. But as it got a little bit more in depth, you broke fighters down. I even did it with my team, guys that were fighting, was that you wanted to know what their strengths were. Where did they come from? What was their background? And then you would develop a training system going into that fight to be able to take them into deep waters, things that they're not comfortable with. And so that's why when we find out they were stand-up, were they a ground guy, a stand-up guy? Did they kick? Were they better with their hands or with their feet? What was their cardio like? Just by trying to pull up fights that they may have had in the past, or whatever they did in the past, whatever discipline they did in the past, to try to pull it up to see what kind of fighter or person they were. And then we would put together those training techniques that would put those guys at a disadvantage. And by doing that, each and every time you learned a different style. because you had to train against the style. So you had to learn what it is they were doing. So over the years, I developed almost every style there was because I had to know exactly what their strengths were. And so I had to understand what it is and how they were going to attack me. So I became very, very efficient at almost all disciplines. That's why when people always say, well, what's your style? Well, it truly is mixed martial arts.
It has to be.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Has to be. Now, there are some memorable fights that I've watched over the years in you fight. And I would like to know the first thing that comes to your name when I throw these names out there. All right. Or the first thing that comes to your head, excuse me, when I throw these names out there. I want to bring up the first one, Rich Franklin.
Right. Class act. Really like the guy. Obviously fighting him was a struggle for me. But if anybody was going to get that, man, it would be him. I mean, because he was a good dude, and I really did like him.
Cool. The big one, Tito Ortiz.
Yeah, man. Pound for pound at that time, best fighter in the world. Just a dominant performance. But I just, the reason why I went back was because Tito had nobody to fight. I mean, literally, they were getting 20,000 buys. I mean, they were dying. And Tito was a character. I mean, he was a guy that he was flamboyant, but nobody knew him yet. Like, nobody was really tuning into it yet. And I knew if I went and fought him and brought the fan base with me, that, there's no doubt that we could put together a great fight as far as the, presence and the buildup to it. Yeah. And so, because I knew he's flamboyant. And that's why I told Dana when he asked me if we could do it, because they were doing low numbers, I said, man, I know I can do the over 100,000 buys because they're only doing 20 or 30,000. That's it. And I said, I know I can because I knew Tito and I knew how he was. And I knew that we could get something going. So I'm telling you, man, it was, even though we were at one another, that was a great opportunity, not just for myself, but for him and the UFC for those fights to happen.
So there's a big appreciation for that, even though there was the at each other. And even to us, we saw how dynamite that was. After the fact, was there respect that kind of came out, or did you guys just part ways and that's it?
No, there's definitely a respect between the both of us. Obviously we were fighting. We got into one another. That's just the way it was. That's what we were. That's what, we did. That's how the fight got built. So, but after it was over, I'm a guy, man, that understands that everybody's human. We're all out there trying to make a living, and you win some and you lose some. And that wasn't those fights weren't good for me personally, but they were great for the industry.
I get it. I get it. Now, this is one of my favorite matchups. And you and this gentleman went to, war. It was, when you guys got in the ring, it was nonstop. Boom. Don Frye.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, Don's a dude, man, that when I fought him, I knew it would be tough because he had really good hands. And he had really good wrestling ability. So normally I was able to, guys that were strikers or that were decent wrestlers, and like Dan Severn, I didn't, even though Dan was a great wrestler and he had all those attributes to beat a lot of guys, I knew I didn't have anything really to fear from him, even though I knew that he was dominating everybody. Because I had submissions, my hands were good, I could kick, I could knee, I could do so much more than what he could do. And he wasn't stronger than me. And so it just felt like, wow. But with Don Frye, that was different. Because he could stop me from taking him down, just like Dan could. But the difference between Dan and Don was that Don could hit me and he had power. So it was a different type of thing when I faced Don. As you've seen how the fight went, it was a blast, and it was a close fight. So, I think that also, if you look at it, was one of the better fights too.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And it could have went either way, in my opinion. But that's just me, Now, what would you say is one of the biggest things from your whole career that you have taken out of it? And if you want to be more succinct, what is the best thing you've taken from one single fight?
Yeah, I think out of my career, I think that the one thing that I take out of it is that, especially if you look back at how it all began, was that I succeeded. You know, I think the biggest challenge was for me, and where I was at was just not going to prison, not going to jail, and making something out of my life. And so when I look at my career, because of being able to do what I did, I made something out of my life. Thank goodness for the UFC and wrestling, because that truly did give me an opportunity to take the anger, the frustration, and the hate that I had towards the world and put it into something positive, and then be able to heal while I was going through my careers. So, and the one thing I think when you talk about one fight, or what was really important throughout my career, I think there's a couple different things, and you can look at a couple different spots that apply to what I'm saying, is that doing it the first time, being somebody that, you know, went from UFC into the WWF, first time I built that road, being the very first UFC Superfight champion, which means single fight. I was that guy, first King of Pancrase champion. You know, I was that guy. First King of the Ring champion when it comes to a guy coming from the outside, coming in from the UFC. So, I mean, I could go down the list. There's a lot of things that I did first, even like the arm bar from a choke slam in pro wrestling. I did it first. So there's a lot of stuff that I was able to trailblaze and just look back on and go, I did it first, man. I did it first.
Let me go in, because we talk about wrestling, and that's such a different. I mean, it's still physical. There's what's going on in such a pageantry and acting of it. Did you love wrestling, like with WWE and so on, more than the fights? What's that difference? What did you really appreciate between wrestling and the UFC?
You know, when you go through life, you go through phases. The early phase for me, when I started doing pro wrestling, I mean, I succeeded. I went to Japan early on. I'm 6 months into my training with Nelson Royal. I got the strap put on me for South Atlantic and North Atlantic Pro Wrestling. So I was achieving a lot early on, but my desire was I wasn't feeding that frustration, anger, hate towards the world, because I wasn't able to fully go. And so when this thing came out, which was the UWF, I jumped in it, and because it looked like, wow, this is even more extreme, because I was doing tough mans and I was winning those. And so I wanted more extreme, like I needed more extreme, because I couldn't feed that desire I had inside of me towards the world, right? And so when that came out, I got to go in a little bit more. Then, of course, Pancrase came out, and that was another level of just letting it fly. And then UFC came out and letting it fly. And so for me, it was just levels of me being able to go out and push that desire to be able to get that frustration and that anger and hate out of me through something positive. So to me, I think when you look at that in a whole picture, that's really, when I look at it, was a road path for me to do what I needed to do.
Let me ask you this, because you talk about the anger and you need of that, and whether you still need some of that in ways today. But you said 7 kids and a bunch of grandchildren and stuff like that. Has those kids mellowed you out? And the reason why I say this is because when I met you on the golf course, you're probably one of the nicest persons of all the celebrities that came.
Persons?
Well, all the celebrities that came by.
That's the persons from the literature major here.
Anyways,
persons.
The reality is that you are one of the nicest guys I've met.
Yes.
You're so fun and approachable. I mean, I know you don't want necessarily everybody approaching you, but you are extremely approachable and you're a nice guy. Has, you know, growing up and being grandfather and a father really helped that as well?
Well, you know, even when I was angry and I hated the world, it was at a certain thing, right? It wasn't, I didn't, even young in high school, if people talk to you, I got in fights, but when I got in fights, it was usually because somebody was picking on somebody or somebody did something to somebody. And I'd get after them. So I was always kind of that guy that was angry at the world, but I was angry at certain things that were taking advantage of people like they did me at times. And so that's the kind of person I was. So I'd never been a person that people would look at it and go, man, he's a jerk, other than the guy I beat up, right? But other than that, I was always that guy. And so I just feel like, for a long time, because people looking in at what the UFC was in the earlier days, they looked at us like we were just animals and that we didn't have souls. And as it started to lighten up, and then people got to know us a little bit, then people really got to know who we were. So I think through all of that, I think I was able to get that anger and frustration out, but in the right areas, and the right people, in the right places. But I've always been a person that wanted to turn around and help people. Even today, that's what I want to do. So we got a lot of foundations right now where we're helping our first responders and sheriff and fire department. So we're building that into our fight league, which is Valor Bare Knuckle. So we're building that in there. So I've always wanted to make sure, even when I was fighting, I would go to different group homes or juvenile hall systems or other people that were in need, and I would donate money. And this was early on before UFC ever did it. So I was doing it before they were actually starting to do it. So I've always been that way, and until the day I die, I'll be that way.
What type of an influence was Dana White for you?
Dana White never really had an influence on me. I mean, me and Dana, I think we rubbed shoulders here and there, but never really connected. I was on my way out, and he had, I think, Tito and Chuck, that when they brought them in and knew that those guys would be something, which they were. So they were great at seeing talent. But I was a little bit older, and I was there for a small part of building that UFC in the beginning, to get them off and going. And, obviously putting Tito over, so that way, he was the next star. So, those things were obviously building the UFC, but me and Dana never really had a relationship. So I don't, and not that it was as bad or anything. Obviously we had our disagreements and our issues, but just like me, like I said, I want to help people. I just want to be cool. I want to move on and live life, and everybody be able to have a great life, whether they're fighting or whether they're not fighting, just live.
It's interesting you say that, how you're putting Tito up, because it's a real fight, right?
Yeah.
It's a real thing that's happening, but you're in there to help support and build somebody up at the same time. It's so iconic to the Andre the Giant Hulk Hogan passing of the torch.
Right. Right. Exactly.
What I thought about that, Andre could have said, screw you.
Yeah.
Right.
But he did a big part of that, even though it was a real fight and could go either way. You did the same.
Yeah, because you're in something that you really love, and you got to respect it, because otherwise, what are you doing? And if it's all about you, then it means nothing, as far as I'm concerned. There's got to be a bigger picture, because it's going to end one day. And if there's not a bigger picture, then what do you have? So for me, when I went in and fought him, I felt like I was going to beat him. Obviously, you never go and think you're going to lose. But I also knew by taking this fight that if I lost to him, it would put him where he needed to be able to keep this legacy moving on, because it is my legacy that these guys are carrying on. Just even today, they're still carrying on my legacy, because I started this. Hoist Gracie, myself, a lot of other people, Dan Severn, Mark Coleman. I mean, I can go on. Frank Shamrock, Pat Militech. I could go on. These are all guys that these people are pushing our legacy.
Yep. No, that's straight up truth. I wanted to ask one WWE question. For you to transition from UFC to WWE, what was that transition like? I know you did wrestling earlier in your career, but that is from ginormous to even bigger at some points.
It was huge, because you're talking about standing in the ring with guys like Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker. I mean, I could go on, man. I mean, I got the Animal and Hawk. I mean, like Big Boss Man, guys I saw on TV.
Yeah.
It's another level. You're absolutely correct. From what I was doing on the indie show, in the smaller venues, to now all of a sudden going from this UFC thing that I had dominated all of a sudden I flip over into this wrestling area, and I walk in there, and I knew walking in that, you know, I was green, I was a rookie, and that these guys were superstars. And I could tell the minute I walked into the ring with these guys, man, the fans were is all over them, even though they knew who I was and they knew I could kick the shit out of them and torture them to no end. They still love these guys, right? And they still were over. And I realized I couldn't hold a candle to them in the wrestling ring. They could work circles around me. And so I had to really understand that where I was at and what level I was, and be able to open my mind to learning and being able to be a better wrestler by learning from these guys.
How was it? It's just fun. I mean, you're with those guys, but were you just having a great time?
Yeah, it was a blast knowing I was standing with some of the greatest guys that have ever stepped in the ring. Here I am in there being able to wrestle with them, and them guys, I really appreciate it too, because every single one of them put me over. Every single one, not in a way of winning, but put me over by taking bumps and selling and doing all those things. So I was really appreciative, because they don't have to. I've seen sometimes when they got in with some guys, they just eat them up. But they worked with me, and they allowed me to be able to do things and do my submissions and be that guy. So I was really blessed that when I went in and wrestled with these guys, they gave me a chance to build my character.
You know what I like most about what you said there is you were learning, and you were learning every day from these guys that put you over. And what a lot of, and I'm going to go to the youngsters, you know, the 20 somethings that are learning. You can learn from anybody at any given time. And I mean, look at Ken here. He's learning from everybody any way that he can. And I think that's huge. And some people don't take that into account for just life, period.
And then
Well,
he back.
Yeah. And then he gives it back.
That's
right.
the next part of that. That's so important. So
Yes.
Yeah, if you walk into a room or into a different place, no matter whether it's business, whether it's sports, whether it's entertainment, acting, whatever it is, if you walk into a room and feel like you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in trouble, because you when you stop learning, that's when you stop progressing. That's when you stop making yourself better. So you always have to go, no matter how far you go in something or how big you become, if you learning from people, because you can learn, you can't. It's like someone says, I would rather learn from somebody that's a smart person rather than somebody that's stupid. I want to learn from the smart guy. So you got to surround yourself and put yourself in positions to where you can learn from people. Don't always build people around you and make people lesser than you because you want to be in charge. You want to challenge yourself and put yourself in positions to always have to learn from people that are just as good or better than you.
Wow.
man, look, that's a great place to finish.
Yeah.
We got to respect Ken's time.
Exactly.
And man, Ken, I hope we run into each other again. You are.
Oh, I can't wait to run into you again. Are you kidding me? Give you a big old hug.
Oh man.
Right.
Just a dear, good person. And I really respect you and appreciate you, and have an amazing Thanksgiving. And thanks for coming on What Up.
Yeah, you guys don't mind if I promote our Valor Bare Knuckle, do you?
Please do.
Yeah, we're doing Valor Bare Knuckle. We did our first show in 2019. COVID hit. We kind of started rethinking how our plan is moving forward, you know. So now we're actually building Valor. We're getting ready to do our launch party January 7th. If you want to check it out, you can go to the Valor app. Or you can go to the Instagram. It's Valor on Instagram. You can go to my Instagram page, which is Ken Shamrock Official, or you can go to the website, valorbk.com. Those are all places you can go to find out exactly what we're doing. I got to give a shout out to a lot of guys that have worked hard at being able to put us in this place. Obviously, it was my vision, but I had to bring my vision of Valor to somebody that would help me put it out there. And you know, Maddie and Todd, Maddie Miranda and Todd Middendorf have been my Lions Den fighters with Jerry Bolender, and they trained under the Lions Den for many years. And so I knew Maddie at the time through Todd had built this big business through the hemp industry, an innovator. So I went to him with Valor with the vision I had, and we did the first fight. And he goes, man, this is like lightning in a bottle. So he jumped in. He built a business plan for this. We're structuring it. Todd Middendorf has been in fighting as long as I have, coaching and fighting. So he's a really good at being able to make the show run smoothly. Also have a guy named Nick who's doing our production. He's out of Florida. He's done a great job up to this point. We got Alex Houhan, Alex Nays, who are really in the NFT and crypto industry that are trying to put those pieces together. Plus, they have a lot of other connections. Steve and Steve does a lot of our tech stuff. He's done a great job of being able to build all of this stuff here, even the stuff we're doing now, which they'll put out to help build Valor. And then Andy, who's doing the marketing, is genius when it comes to marketing. So we got a great, strong team, and there's more people out there that are working also on this, but I can't go through them all. But we got a great team. I think this thing is going to be really successful. I love the vision and where it's going. So again, January 7th, check it out on our Valor app, or you can go through Instagram page, Ken Shamrock Official, or Instagram on Valor called Valor Instagram.
And that's all in the description below.
January 7th. Okay, that's in my calendar right now. In my calendar.
Yeah, all of that's going to be in the description. You guys can find all the information there. Please check out Valor. Thank you, Ken. What up?
What up, folks? From all of us here at What Up Sports and the What Up Sports Nation, have a great day, a better tomorrow, and happy Thanksgiving.
Peace.